Please give rise once more to bodhicitta and listen to the teachings with bodhicitta. So, amongst the various parts of the text, we're currently looking at the 3 types of suffering, and from among them, the suffering of everything composite, which is also translated as the all-pervading suffering of conditioning. So, actually, if we look at it, if we really examine things, we see that everything is the nature of this suffering, because everything is conditioned. So this type of suffering, the suffering of every composite, is the very basic nature of all things. Of objects, of phenomena, of status, wealth, and so on and so forth. All of these things are the suffering of being composite. This suffering pervades all 3 worlds, the desire worlds, form worlds, and formless worlds. As it says here, whatever kind of rebirth we take, high or low, in these 3 worlds of desire, form, and formlessness, we suffer as if ill and unceasingly racked by pain. So wherever you take rebirth in samsara, you will suffer. You are not beyond suffering. Whether it be a kind of coarse or subtle suffering, apparent or unapparent, more whether it be very whether it be very coarse, obvious suffering or more subtle, unobvious suffering. Nevertheless, we cannot escape suffering. Suffering pervades all states of samsara. So there is no chance of being happy for even a second. We should therefore feel deeply disillusioned with cyclic existence, thinking, from now on I must seek definite freedom, as if I were escaping from a dark dungeon. We should feel a deep disillusionment, a disenchantment, a weariness with samsara, and think, from now on I will seek definite freedom, meaning complete freedom from samsara. So everyone, please sit down and be quiet. We should feel a great sense of fortune in our current situation. We should really feel that we are deeply fortunate at having encountered the teacher and the teaching, and understand that by making use of this opportunity, putting the teachings into practice right now, we can free ourselves from samsara, from the dungeon of samsara, and this is in fact the only way we can ever free ourselves from samsara. To put the teachings into practice and thereby attain freedom. In Karma Chakme's aspiration for rebirth in Sukhavati, it says, just like someone escaping from a dark dungeon. So we need to bring an end to our time in samsara, because no matter where we take rebirth, we will never find happiness. Just as we explained and discussed previously, there is no happiness to be found in samsara. So we need to apply ourselves and make sure that we gain a foothold on the state of liberation, that in this life we gain a foothold on the path to liberation, meaning that we actually establish ourselves firmly on the path to liberation. At the very, very least, we must ensure a positive rebirth for ourselves in the human and God realms in the future. So, as it said, if you don't make this present life meaningful, if we don't make good use of this present life, there is no hope. There is no hope of attaining such a rebirth again. So we really need to understand this, take to heart the fact that no matter where we're born in samsara, high or low, there is no real happiness to be found there. Therefore, as the great master, meaning Guru Rinpoche, says, however much effort you put into worldly activities, they are never finished. Put your efforts therefore into the Dharma and the job will be quickly done. Activities concerned with cyclic existence, however good, bring ruin in the end. There's nothing genuinely good to come from any worldly activities, whether it be farming, agriculture, business, politics. Those activities never come to an end, they're never really completed. So as it says in the first 2 lines here, these worldly activities are never finished. So rather, put your efforts into the Dharma, and then the job will be quickly done. The Dharma is something that really can be completed, and a project that can be completed. When you attain liberation, when you attain enlightenment, then the job is done. Otherwise, mundane activities, of course they don't bring happiness, but they also just never come to an end. There's always something else to do, there's no fulfillment. So therefore put your efforts into the Dharma, and that job will be quickly done. There will come a time where you are free from the rivers, the great rivers of suffering, the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness and death. If you fail to do that, and you continue in samsara, then you'll just end up suffering again and again. You will end up suffering. Activities concerned with psychic existence, however good they might seem, they bring ruin in the end. The result of practicing the sublime Dharma can never be spoiled, can never be wasted. From time without beginning, we've made a habit of deeds, afflictive motions, and habitual tendencies, continuously storing them in our stream of being. Since time without beginning, we have cultivated habits, afflictions. So there's no need to teach someone how to steal, how to lie, how to be emotional. We've trained ourselves in these things over the course of so many lifetimes, since time without beginning up until now. So we know these things already automatically. What we don't know yet is how to practice the Dharma right. That is not yet an instinct for us. As a result, we wander in cyclic existence, deluded by our perceptions. Since beginning this time, under the sway of attachment, aversion and ignorance and so on, we have been wandering in cyclic existence in samsara, deluded endlessly by our perceptions. As to when we'll be liberated, who can say? There is no end. If we don't intervene and practice the Dharma, there will be no end to this wheel of samsara. The water wheel will keep on turning. Even if we think of the Dharma as we're dying, it will be far too late. You've left it too late. If you wait until you're old and dying, you will have left it too late. Like if you're only diagnosed with cancer, like phase 4, when the disease is already terminal, there's nothing you can do, right? There is nothing that can be done. And someone might lie on their deathbed, someone with terminal cancer might lie on their deathbed and talk about doing all sorts of things, selling their house, selling their land and doing this and that. But it's too late. No matter what they do, it's not going to help. Medicine is of no use to someone who has been beheaded. So before we arrive at death, before the illness gets so bad it can't be cured, so to speak, we need to apply ourselves, to take medicine, to apply ourselves to the Dhamma before it's too late. For this reason, wholly acknowledge the sufferings of psychic existence, and to truly climb the road to peace, care for all beings with love and compassion, and meditate on the union of compassion and emptiness. Unless we mentally forsake all the superficial activities of this life, however many years we spend trying to accomplish the Dhamma, it will never be the real thing. So unless we mentally forsake, unless we cast aside, give up the superficial activities of this life, however many years we spend trying to accomplish the Dhamma, engaged in the guise of practicing the Dhamma, it'll never be the real thing. When we practice, we need to be practicing with our sights set on our future lives. We need to be practicing for the sake of future lives, not for the sake of this life, for gaining respect, appreciation, acknowledgement. So So if you just engage in Dharma, you do a lot of practice, you don the robes, you know how to play the Dhammaru and bell, and you call yourself a practitioner, well, just that alone doesn't qualify you as a practitioner. That alone is not what it means to be a practitioner. That's just a superficial show. Even those, so some people might go off to stay on 3 retreat, but why are they doing that? Well, so that they can get the acknowledgement and the respect of someone who's done 3 retreat, gain that status. Likewise, someone who's engaging their studies and hoping to get a Lupan or Kempo degree. Why? So that they can gain that status, right? That status and the occupation of being a Kempo and a teacher and this and that. Even. And then I find people, seeming practitioners, who say, I really want to do so much to benefit beings, but it's just not happening. I'm putting in so much effort, but it's just not coming to fruit. Well, look at the activities and the lives of great masters like Kimmo Chökyi Rinpoche, Kimmo Jime Phuntsok Rinpoche, and so on. They gathered but by the end of their lives, they had hundreds of students. Kimmo Jime Phuntsok Rinpoche had literally thousands of students who just gathered around him, just like bees gathering around flowers, drawn to them by their beautiful scent. So this is how you benefit beings. You benefit beings by, first of all, benefiting yourself, by taming yourself, by practicing genuinely. Then when you yourself are genuinely tamed, when you yourself turn out well, then automatically you'll be able to benefit others. Automatically you'll be able to influence and inspire others, have a positive impact on others. Like if someone who just observes their monastic vows very purely, very sincerely, that has an impact, that has an influence, that inspires people. They don't need to do anything extra. They don't need to go out and engage in some special activity or project. Just maintaining those vows, just practicing purely, sincerely, that itself is enough to impact and benefit sentient beings. So genuine activities that benefit beings, they happen naturally. They are the natural consequence of genuine practice. You don't need to sort of intentionally plan to go out and do this and that to benefit others. The teachings rest on the Noble Sangha. The Noble Sangha rests on the monastics, those with the novice and full monastic vows. Maintaining those vows is an incredibly blessed and precious thing, incredibly valuable thing. So to practice genuinely, sincerely, in and of oneself, that is how to uphold the teachings, that is how to benefit beings, and benefit for others will automatically stem from that when the time is right. On the other hand, doing lots of extra things, putting on fancy hats and holding special pujas and making a show of doing this and that, for the most part, that actually is doing a disservice to the teachings and beings instead of a service. For instance, if someone practices really devotedly themselves, they practice really diligently, they devote their life to practice, to 3-year retreats, many retreats and so on, then what influence do they have on others, right? They inspire others to do the same. They don't have to go out and lecture others on the benefits of retreat. They don't have to go out and do something extra. Just by setting an example. By setting that example, they will inspire others to do the same. Look at the disciples of teachers who do lots of retreat. Usually those disciples will automatically do lots of retreat themselves, right? Because they're following in the footsteps of their teacher. They're inspired by their example. That's how it goes. So to practice sincerely yourself, to have devotion and faith and so on, that will inspire devotion and pure perception in others. That itself will have a bigger impact on others than you're doing something extra. So setting an example by practicing sincerely yourself, that's the best way, that's the way to benefit others and to serve the teachings. Just to practice so that you can serve as an inspiration, as a genuine example to others. That's how we serve the teachings, how we serve beings. When we talk about serving the teachings and beings, you shouldn't think that means like embarking on some special project, some special plan and activity, something more or extra. So this is the way it is, whether it be east or west or where have you. So it said you should look at someone, not at what someone says, but at what they do. Not at what someone says, but how they live. So if you want to think about how good a practitioner someone is, well, you can tell that not from the way they talk, not from what they say, but actually from the way they live, from the way they conduct themselves and live their lives. So look at their great lives, the examples of the great masters of the past, like Omniscient Jigme Lingpa, Tratan Shushu Lingpa, Jetsun Mila, and so on, Long Chenpa, and so on. Look at how they lived. So they should be our examples, our reference points as their disciples, as their followers. Then we should try to emulate their example, do our best to follow in their footsteps. And if we take them as our example, them as our compass, their example as our compass, then there isn't much danger of us going astray. And especially if you practice as you preach. If you really practice as you preach, then that also will really inspire others. That's how it should be. Like Khenpo Dazo Rinpoche, my teacher, he really practiced as he preached. Everything that he taught, he put into practice himself. He really embodied the qualities that he taught. And that really instilled so much confidence in all of us, his students. So likewise, if you're accumulating the money mantra, for instance, don't just spend your time. Don't just recite the money mantra, but actually apply the meaning of that in your life. Like, even in terms of if you see an insect on the ground in front of you, make sure you don't step on that insect, and so on and so forth. So this stemmed from the bottom of page 115, where it says, we must forsake all the superficial activities of this life. So this includes practicing the Dharma kind of with the aim of accomplishing fame or what have you, or in this life. So recognizing the whole of cyclic existence is meaningless, relinquish all your endless projects and use every possible means to practice the perfectly pure sublime Dharma, thinking that I might be able to do so. Precious teacher, in you I put my trust. So make a heartfelt supplication to the teacher that we might be able to practice sincerely, properly, completely free of attachment and clinging, because that is what we need. That's the point we need to reach, where we're completely free and beyond all attachment to wealth, to status, to respect, to happiness. As I pray to you, precious teacher, bless me, incomparably kind Lord. So precious teacher, precious gracious teacher, who's shown me the kindness of bestowing empowerments, transmissions and so on, bestow your blessings, incomparably kind Lord. So the blessings we're requesting here are to be free of attachment and clinging, to take impermanence and death to heart, to acknowledge the value of this precious human life, and so on. This is what we're supplicating for. We're not supplicating for blessings of good luck, of prosperity, of respect, and so on. but rather the blessings of being able to see that samsara is the nature of suffering, that samsara is nothing other than suffering, that we can acknowledge the imminence of death and the fact of impermanence, the preciousness of finding this precious human body endowed with freedoms and advantages. This is what we really mean when we say blessings. Not these days when we say the word blessings, people immediately think of something to eat or drink, some nectar or something. People say, oh, today I ate some blessings, because you ate some tsok, some blessed substances. That's not what blessing really means. That's not kind of the main blessing, the most important blessing. The real blessing, most important blessing, is a transformation of mind, inner transformation. Just as Dabolaje Gampopa says in his the Four Dhammas of Gampopa, bless me that my mind may turn to the Dhamma turn to the path, Dhamma become the path. So in those four Dhammas, one supplicates the Guru, bless me that my mind may turn to the Dhamma. So if we are constantly thinking about our business, our farming, our preoccupations, our work and so on, then our mind has not turned to the Dhamma. If, though, we see that all mundane activities are essenceless, they're futile, and our interest turns away from worldly deeds to the Dhamma, then that is the blessing of our minds turning away from worldly activities towards the Dhamma. Then we supplicate the Guru that our Dhamma may become the path, so that our practice may really become the path. Meaning whatever Dhamma practice we do, meditation, retreat, Thuriya retreat, that we can complete it, bring it to fruition. Then we supplicate, bless me that my Dhamma may remove confusion, that it may dispel confusion. Because that is the function that Dhamma should perform, right? Dispelling the confusion about reality, dispelling the afflictions that stem from that confusion. This should be the result of whatever practice and study we do. Otherwise, if you do a 3-year retreat, or you do this and that practice, you complete many years of study, but you're still brimming with afflictions, with anger and hatred and desire and so on, then your Dhamma has not dispelled confusion. The Dhamma you've done has not performed its function. Then we supplicate, bless me that confusion may arise as wisdom, that I may realize the two types of no-self, and that confusion, the afflictions themselves arise as wisdom, primordial wisdom. So whether you are studying, whether you are practicing, whether you are meditating, whether you are accumulating the money mantra and so on, you should do all of that free of the afflictions, free of the negative emotions, without falling prey to those emotions. As a practitioner, we need to be aware of the emotions, right? When they arise, we need to become aware of them and not fall under their sway. Just as it's said in the Vinaya, just as Buddha said in his teachings on Vinaya, whatever Dhamma or whatever thing one does, if it is connected with the afflictions, with attachment, and it does not serve as a remedy for attachment, that is not Dhamma. That is not the Buddha's Dhamma. On the other hand, anything you do that is free of afflictions and serves as a remedy for the afflictions, for attachment, that is Dhamma. So it's defined very clearly in the Vinaya, in this and other places. So basically, our practice needs to be free. Our practice in ourselves, we need to be free of the afflictions of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Until we reach that point, then no matter what practice we might be supposedly engaged in, the great perfection, the great seal, completion, generation stage, completion stage, what have you, it's not yet mature, it's not yet the real thing. Yeah, it's not yet ripened or matured into the real thing, into what it's meant to be. And these days this is how it's going. Most people, whether they be practitioners, renunciants or lay people, the Dharma is not really serving to tame and influence their minds. It's not really ripening in their minds as it should be. So please keep these important points in mind. Whatever you're doing, whatever practice or study you're doing, it should act as a remedy for your afflictions. It should remedy your attachment, your aversion, your ignorance, and the other afflictions. That is the clear sign of genuine practice. Otherwise, if your afflictions are not decreasing, no matter what practice you might be engaged in, no matter how much you might seem to be doing, well, you're not doing it properly. It's not working. So Sangari Pandita said in his treatise on the 3 verse, all the various vehicles, there are so many different vehicles and vehicles of Dhamma, so many practices and approaches the Buddha taught, but all of them, the common feature of all of them is that they all must function to reduce the afflictions. So whatever practice you're doing, whatever type of Dhamma you're doing, whatever level, whatever style, this is what it should be doing. This is the common feature or the common function of all Dhamma practice. Of course, the way that the different practices and different vehicles abandon the afflictions, reduce the afflictions, differs. But nevertheless, the basic function is the same, must be. That's what all Dhamma needs to be doing, reducing and abandoning the afflictions, ridding our minds of those afflictions. Otherwise, really, one cannot say it enough. If the different practices you're doing are not reducing emotions, no matter how much you seem to be doing hundreds of thousands of feast offerings, hundreds of thousands of butter lamp offerings, hours and hours of meditation, millions of mantras, years of study, what have you, these are not then going to really help you, and they're not performing their function. If you're not practicing in such a way that your afflictions are decreasing, then your practice is really not being effective. You're not practicing properly, we could say. And sure, those activities will still help you to accumulate some merit, but they're not performing the function that the Dhamma is meant to perform, which is to tame the mind of the negative emotions. So to this end, we supplicate the Guru, bless me, incomparably kind Lord. And if we supplicate in this way, we practice in this way, and we reach the point where our mind is completely at ease, tranquil and at ease and untroubled, then that's a sign of the blessings entering us. We use the term train the mind, right? So when we say train the mind, don't think we're training the mind in the same way that like soldiers are training in the army, like physical training or training an elephant, teaching it to do all sorts of things. That's not what we mean. When we say train the mind, we mean to tame the mind, to transform it from a mass of afflictions into a state free of affliction. To train the mind by reducing the afflictions that plague it. That's what we mean by train the mind. or tame the mind. It's equally translated like that often. It said, training the mind is excellent. By training the mind, one attains bliss, one attains happiness. So when the mind is trained or tamed, it becomes gentle. It becomes gentle and kind. No negativity, nothing that harms others will ever come from a tamed, gentle mind. The thought to steal, the thought to deceive others, the thought to harm others, an aggressive action, that cannot come from a tamed, gentle mind. So it's to this end that we are supplicating the Guru to grant their blessings. So these three reflections, the first three of the four mind changings that we've covered, are so incredibly important. The reflection on the preciousness of human birth, endowed with freedoms and advantages, impermanence and death, and the defects of psychic existence. And now we come to an equally or even more vital reflection, the reflection on the unfailing law of actions, karmic cause and effect. As Guru Rinpoche said, though my view is higher than the sky, my conduct is finer than a flower. Meaning, even though his view was unsurpassably high, exalted, higher than the sky, his observance of karmic cause and effect at the level of conduct, the level of action, was finer than a flower. So a meticulous observance of karmic cause and effect. So even if you have a very high view, you must still observe karma extremely carefully. So there's no use in, say, being a truku or a kempo or whoever, or especially if you're a truku recognized to be the rebirth of someone, and acting as if you're beyond karmic cause and effect. As if you don't have to pay attention to virtue or non-virtue. Don't have to be careful with your actions. That is completely wrong, completely mistaken. Where does such an idea even come from? Who knows if a lot of those who've been recognized as tulkus really are genuine tulkus, genuine incarnations of realized beings. In any case, these days there's so many tulkus and lamas who just think they're like beyond, they're exempt from karma, exempt from the need to tame their conduct, to behave basically. That is completely wrong, completely perverted. As Jigme Ninpa said, karma is like a bird flying in the sky, an eagle or a garuda flying high in the sky, so high that when you look at them from the ground, you can't see their shadow. But that doesn't mean they've escaped their shadow. It's not that they are without shadow, it's just that their shadow is not visible at the moment. When they land on the ground, as soon as they land on the ground, their shadow will appear. So just like the shadow is inseparable from a body, as long whoever has a corporeal body, they have a shadow, right? So likewise, any action performed will bear a result. Yeah, you might not see the result straight away, just like you don't see the shadow of a bird flying high in the sky. But that doesn't mean that result isn't going to bear fruit and ripen. Just like a seed that might take months to sprout, likewise some karmic actions, they might take a long time to bear fruit, right, to ripen. But without a doubt, they will eventually ripen. So like if you hurt others, if you kill animals or kill other beings, yeah, that karma you accumulate is not going to ripen immediately. But just like a seed that slowly grows and sprouts, slowly that karma will ripen. You will bear the negative consequences of your actions. You cannot escape that. No matter how smooth a talker you are, or skilled you are, you cannot escape karma. Lama, Chugu, whoever you may be, you are not beyond karma. There are lots of nice stories, very pertinent stories we could tell, found in Words of My Perfect Teacher and elsewhere, that bring this point home, how even lamas and chugus are not beyond karma. And lots of stories about lamas and chugus and so on reaping the consequences of their own actions. He's sending a message to the lamas and chugus and practitioners, right? Well, I think Rinpoche said there was a lama previously at Katok Monastery, or one of the major monasteries. And some of the students then went to Dzogchen Monastery and requested prayers for their deceased teacher. And when the master of Dzogchen Monastery was doing these pujas, they repeated the part of the ritual that calls the consciousness of the deceased and tries to guide them. They did that again and again, calling the consciousness of this deceased lama and trying to guide them up to a better destiny again and again. And the students were quite displeased like that. They thought, we're talking about a very high lama here. Our lama was very accomplished. He doesn't need these sorts of rituals done for him. Why is this master at Dzogchen doing this? And when they eventually asked, why were you doing that for our deceased teacher? The teacher replied, well, yes, your teacher himself, he didn't need that kind of help. But at one point he accepted offerings from a very negative person, a very evil person, and neglected to dedicate those offerings properly. So by misusing the offerings from that very evil person, then the master was kind of obscured or held back by the obscuration of misusing those offerings. So this just shows, the story is, you can find the proper details of this story in the Words of My Perfect Teacher, the name of the teacher and so on and so forth. But this and so many other stories we could tell just go to show that even if you're a lama, a tulku, whoever, you're not beyond karma. Even seemingly minor things like misusing one or two offerings, those are karmic deeds that will bear fruit. You have to bear the consequences of each and every action. So one must observe karma meticulously, no matter who you are. If you fail to, then you will bring disaster down upon yourself. So there are 3 sections to this reflection: general reflection on actions and their results, specific reflection on categories, and an explanation in summary of the 4 truths. As for the first, we might think that although it's true that life is impermanent and will die, as was explained above, we won't have to take birth again after all. Is it not said? So you might think, yeah, everything's impermanent, sooner or later I'll die. But maybe I won't have to take rebirth again. So what's the problem? After all, it's said by non-Buddhists such as the Charvakas, the nihilists, like wind-blown ashes from a fire, what is there to be reborn? So this and 2 more examples are mentioned in treatises like the Ornament of the Middle Way. these examples that are used by the nihilists or the Charvakas, a nihilist philosophical school, that say everything is just like at the end of life, life ceases, just like wind blown ashes from a fire. They also give the example of like mushrooms just randomly appearing overnight in a field and so on, to deny cause and effect. So, or even if we're to be reborn and not the happiness and suffering of psychic existence in its higher and lower states produced by an external creator, or perhaps independently rather than by our deeds. So these are some of the beliefs of non-Buddhists. But this is wrong, right? Things are not created by an almighty, by God, but rather by our own deeds. Our experiences are the results of our own deeds. There is no independent, autonomous creator. Nothing besides karma. Positive experiences come from positive karma, negative experiences come from negative karma. That's how it is. So likewise, such people might think, will our positive and negative deeds not simply be wasted at the time of death? Do we really need to practice the Dharma? But the truth is, the relationship between cause and effect is unfailing, undeceiving, and the results of actions ripen on the doer. The results you perform will ripen in your own experience. Marvel, the world is created from deeds. Happiness and suffering are produced by deeds. Everything is created by deeds or karma. From positive karma or helpful deeds comes happiness. From unhelpful negative deeds comes suffering. They come from the gathering of conditions. It's our deeds that produce our pleasure and pain. Even after 100 kalpas, beings' deeds are never lost, just like putting something in the bank. Soon it is stored there, our karma is stored, and eventually when the conditions come about, that karma will ripen as positive or negative experience. When the time and conditions are right, they'll ripen as their respective results. In one of the sutras, it says, Parrot, the son of the Brahmin householder, Tota asked, O Gautama, what are the causes and conditions by which beings have long or short lives, good or poor health, and so on? Buddha then replied to this question. So previously, first of all, this student asks a question, and then Buddha gives his answer. Son of a Brahmin, sentient beings are the product of their deeds. Sentient beings are not the product of a creator, an independent, autonomous creator, an almighty, a god, as asserted by the Judeo-Christian traditions and other traditions, but rather sentient beings are the product of their own deeds. Karma, which we can translate as deed or action, is like a seed, a cause, a seed. So karma is the seed, the cause, and then conditions are the factors that support that seed. So Khyambo Daza Rinpoche would say, as indeed it is taught in the scriptures, that which contributes to the essence, or that which benefits, maybe we could say that which contributes to the essence is the cause, that which contributes to the factors are the conditions. So this is how we can define a cause. A cause is that which contributes to the essence, like the essence of something. Like if you have a rice seed or a barley seed, the essence of that. That is the essence of that respective cause, right? So rice seed is not going to ripen as barley, or barley as rice, and so on. So the cause relates to the essence of something, and then the conditions are the factors that help bring that cause to fruition. When causes and conditions come together, the coming together of causes and conditions we call cause and effect, or causality. For a cause to ripen, you need conditions, supportive conditions. The lot they enjoy is that of their deeds. So it's not the result of the Christian God or Allah or other gods and almighties that are taught in various non-Buddhist traditions. Instead, sentient beings are the product of their own deeds. The lot they enjoy, positive or negative, is that of their own deeds, positive or negative. If you performed a lot of negative, harmful actions in your past lives, then in this life you will reap the consequence and have a lot of suffering, misfortune, ill health, and so on. In your past lives, if you've done a lot of positive, helpful actions, then you'll reap the consequence in this life by having fortune, good health, an attractive appearance, and so on. So it's said that, for instance, some people have incredibly beautiful voices, right? Like some of these Indian singers have incredibly beautiful voices, extraordinarily beautiful voices, and it's said that a beautiful voice is the karmic result of making offerings or praises to the stupas, representations of enlightened body, speech and mind, or offering bells to stupas and so on. These are karmic causes for a beautiful voice. For instance, they're dependent on their deeds and thus distinguished as sublime, base, or middling, and so on. Beings have all sorts of deeds, all sorts of views, all sorts of experiences. So to backtrack, the lot they enjoy is that of their deeds. The lot they enjoy, this also refers to the karmic experiences and perceptions of beings, like the fact that as humans we perceive water as something to drink and bathe in, as opposed to perceiving it as lava, which the hell beings might perceive it as, or as a place to live in, like animals, like some fish would perceive it. So the way we perceive things is also part of our lot, and that also comes from karma. That's also a result of karma. So our experiences, we call them karmic experiences, karmic appearances. Because of the negative actions, or we could say black actions associated with these, beings take birth in the hells, or as hungry spirits, or as animals, and because of their positive or white virtuous actions, they'll be born among gods and humans. So when we talk of positive actions or virtuous actions, white actions, we're talking about the 10 virtues. And then likewise with negative actions, the 10 non-virtues. It's very important that we all know what the 10 non-virtues and 10 virtues are. Otherwise, when you say, I am I will shun non-virtue, if you don't know what even the 10 non-virtues are, you might say, I will shun non-virtue, but what you really mean by that, you're not clear what it is you need to avoid. So the 10 non-virtues are comprised of the 3 non-virtues of body, 4 non-virtues of speech, and 3 non-virtues of mind. By engaging in these non-virtues, one takes rebirth in the 3 lower realms. On the other hand, by engaging in positive actions, the 10 non-virtues, and in addition, further positive actions. As a result, we will take rebirth in the realms of gods and humans. And if we can engage in virtue and suffuse our virtuous actions with an understanding of emptiness, then that becomes what we call emptiness in accord with liberation. Merit in accord with liberation, namely merit that by virtue of being infused with an understanding of emptiness and so on, can now lead to liberation, become a cause for liberation. Otherwise, if you engage in virtue, maybe a great wealth of virtue, generosity and discipline and so on and so forth, but you do so without any understanding of emptiness, the view and so on, then all of that merit you accumulate will not lead to liberation. It won't become, to use the technical term, it will not become merit concordant with liberation. So in the greater vehicle, all one's virtue is infused with bodhicitta, with the supreme mind or the supreme mind of bodhicitta. And thus the roots of virtue accumulated by greater vehicle practitioners are exceedingly powerful, even more powerful than the virtue accumulated by the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. So of course any virtue you accumulate, any virtue you perform is wonderful. Helping others, giving to others, helping the needy, generosity. But if that is not infused with bodhicitta, then it will not become merit concordant with liberation. It won't become a cause for liberation. It will only become a cause for positive rebirth in the God and human realms. It won't have the power to lead you beyond samsara. So whether positive or negative, even though an action may be insignificant at the moment it's performed, at the moment of its full maturation, its result will have greatly increased until it has become 100, 1,000, or even an infinite number of times greater, like a grain of barley or some other seed growing and spreading. So this is really how it goes, isn't it? Think of a seed like a single rice seed or a single barley seed. That is something very tiny and small. But what does that grow into? It grows into, or like the seed, it grows into a great sheaf of grain, which then multiplies itself and gives rise to so many other hundreds of sheaves of grain. So likewise, a tiny seed of a tree, of the Ashoka tree, that grows into an enormous tree whose roots spread kilometers underneath the ground and whose branches likewise grow as that far. When you read about these sorts of trees in the scriptures, and you do find mention of the Ashoka tree and these enormous trees in the scriptures, you kind of think, could a tree possibly grow that big? But actually there are trees that big, aren't there? Like these, what are they called? The red fern trees, whose trunks are so wide that large cars can drive through a hollow in the trunk. And all of that comes from a tiny seed. So this is to say, a small cause can lead to a very large result. So we need to be careful, very careful about our actions. Just one action can lead to, for instance, taking life, killing. One act of killing can ripen as multiple experiences of suffering, of having to suffer in the hell realm again and again and again. Because causes multiply. One cause, a small cause, can lead to an enormous result. Like the, not Ashoka tree actually, but the Ashota. I'm not sure what that is in English, but it's the name of a specific tree. Unless the deeds we have accumulated are annulled by antidotes, it's impossible for them to be used up until their results have matured. So it's extremely important to take the adoption of virtue and avoidance of negative actions seriously. one cause can lead to multiple results. So until karma ripens, it will never go to waste. It's not going to disappear. Like in the 100 teachings on karma, it says, to paraphrase, it says, even if many kalpas go by, a single karmic act will never go to waste. It's never going to disappear. And eventually it will ripen when the supportive conditions come about. Then that karmic cause will ripen. And where will it ripen? It will ripen in your own aggregates, meaning in your own personal experience. You yourself will have to reap the result of every single action you perform. Every seed you sow, you will have to reap the result. To perform negative actions in search of some short-lived superficial happiness is just to deceive yourself. It's a bit like a fish wanting to taste the worm that's on the hook, on the fisherman's hook, biting into that hook. Yeah, they get a fleeting moment of pleasure from tasting that worm, but now their mouth has been pierced by a hook. They have terrible pain and they're going to be drawn out of the water and killed. So what is the point of seeking these short-lived mundane pleasures, and to that end creating negative karma? What's the use of winning happiness in this life through evil deeds? That will lead to misery in many lives to come. So what's the use of winning some fleeting happiness in this life through evil deeds? What's the use of accumulating negative karma just in order to experience some fleeting, superficial happiness, when that negative karma you accumulate will lead to misery, so much misery in many lives to come? This life is short, a mere few months or years, and there's no telling how long one's future lives will last. So compared to this short life, one's future lives are much longer. Compare the two, future lives are much longer than this. The way, therefore, to make your other lives, your future lives, happy and free of pain, is to take up virtue and abandon negative deeds. That is the only way to guarantee happiness for yourself in the future. There's no way you can pray to gods or the deities for it and have them shower down happiness upon you. The only way is to cultivate it for yourself by avoiding non-virtue and cultivating virtue. So now we come to the next aspect of the reflection, reflecting specifically on categories. There are 3 parts here: reflecting on negative actions to be avoided, reflecting on positive actions to be accomplished, and transforming indeterminate actions into positive causes. So this is really important. The subsections here. So reflecting on the negative actions to be avoided and the positive actions to be accomplished. So first of all, we have an explanation here on the 10 non-virtues. It's so important that we are all very clear about what the 10 non-virtues are, that we know them off by heart, that we can count them off on our fingers one by one. So the 3 physical non-virtues of killing, stealing and sexual misconduct, and then the 4 of speech, lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and gossip, and then the 3 of mind: envy, malice, and wrong view. It's not so difficult. It's 10 non-virtues. We should memorize them, take them to heart, so that we can, enumerate them for ourselves. No need to mention this to the practitioners and scholars here. This is also very important for the lay students. So, reflecting on negative actions to be avoided. First of all, negative actions comprise naturally shameful deeds and shameful deeds that violate edicts. So there are 2 types of shameful deeds. So one synonym for negative actions is shameful deeds. And there are 2 types of shameful deeds: those that are naturally shameful and those that violate edicts, meaning if one takes certain vows, makes certain commitments, like taking the novice or full monastic vows, then you have made the commitment, you have pledged to observe those precepts, 252 and so on, precepts of a fully ordained monk, and so on and so forth. So if you have made that commitment, to then transgress any of those precepts is a non-virtue, it is a shameful deed. But some of those precepts are not naturally shameful, in the sense, if you haven't taken the vow, performing that action, if you haven't taken the vow, that same action is not necessarily naturally a negative action, right? But naturally shameful deeds, the first category, this describes actions that are naturally negative, whether you are, regardless of what vow you have or don't have, whether you're Buddhist, non-Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, religious, non-religious, these are naturally inherently negative, inherently shameful. So you might think, well, we have this category, naturally shameful deeds, and then shameful deeds that only apply for those with specific vows. You might think, well, why did Buddha do this? Why did he kind of create lots of extra negative deeds? What's the point in that? Well, the Dharma is like medicine, and we take medicine in order to cure ourselves from different illnesses. And there are different types of medicine, right? Some have a deeper action than others. Some work on a more superficial level, some on a deeper level. So, like traditionally in Tibet, a Tibetan physician would diagnose a patient by checking their pulse, and they would diagnose the person by taking their pulse, and then depending on what was going on with the patient, they would then go off into the mountains and gather herbs and make medicine, make a customized medicine for that person. So now I've lost my train of thought. So really, the most skilled physician, the most skilled doctor would do this, not give medicine like doctors give these days, even Tibetan doctors these days. They give 50 people with a cold, they give the same type of medicine, just this, they give the same type of medicine, a pre-prepared medicine, to lots of different people for the same illness, instead of making customized medicines for them. So the Buddha, the great physician, the Buddha, did the same thing, teaching customized paths and antidotes for different people. That's why Buddha taught so many different paths to liberation, so many paths of practice, different approaches and styles of practice, including the monastic path, with novice vows, full vows, and so on and so forth. This is an unmistaken, genuine path that leads one to the state of liberation. Observing those 252 monastic precepts and following all the guidelines of the Vinaya, living one's life in that way, training one's being in that way. For this is a path that suits many people, that suits the constitution of many people, and is a very skillful way of leading them to liberation. So if you read the Buddha's teachings, you see how he taught each and every disciple in a customized way. He could see with his great wisdom and compassion what each and every being needed, specifically where they were and what they needed to progress. And so we find so many different teachings he gave. He gave a different teaching to each student. I think Rinpoche mentioned one of his disciple who became one of his most exalted disciples, Modgalayana. I think that was the name Rinpoche mentioned. In short, he told this disciple, instructed him to clean, to sweep and clean and collect water and do all these menial physical tasks. And there are teachings about these in the sutras, but eventually through these actions, through these menial actions and efforts, then this student purified his obscurations and attained the state of arhat. So that shows Buddha knew with his compassion and wisdom exactly what that individual needed to purify his mind, taught him accordingly, and he attained the state of arhatship in that very life. This is why we praise Buddha as being endowed with great skill in means and great compassion. Now Rinpoche is telling this story of one of the kings in Buddha Shakyamuni's time, who was a disciple of Buddha and wishing to make offerings to the Buddha and his disciples.
하고니 안테 코든 다좀 비고 오상기 좀 된데서 딘능신기 탑결로 tuk지치비 랑신전지레데레 따띠 묵진 람중왔던 도차전 몽골기 강센 도차전 되네 건 중가우들와 어야 되네 거버스로 다
Sorry, that disciple, I didn't catch all of that story, but the disciple who attained arhatship through doing all these menial tasks was not Modgalyana, but someone else. Anyway, the point is that Buddha taught beings according to their needs. For those with primarily with ignorance, he's taught certain things. For those whose primary emotion was anger, he taught in a different way. For those whose primary emotion was desire, he taught them in a different way, corresponding to their needs and disposition. In any case, we have this twofold division of shameful deeds, naturally shameful deeds, and shameful deeds that violate edicts. Although they are of many different kinds, as far as we're concerned, in adopting virtue and giving up evil, the most important of them can be roughly summarized as 10 in number, so the 10 non-virtues. Like I said, we all need to be crystal clear about what the 10 non-virtues are. Otherwise, how can we give them up, right? If we don't know what we're giving up, how can we give them up? And these 10 non-virtues are also taught, of course, in the words of my perfect teacher, where they're explained in a lot of detail. So first of all, we have the 3 negative actions of the body. We're now on page 120. The first of these negative actions is taking life. Taking life involves the wish to kill, the act of killing without mistaking the intended victim, and not abandoning one's murderous intentions until death ensues. So the worst, most grave act of killing is to kill a human being. If one kills a human being, one breaks one of one's 4 root precepts, one loses the monastic vows and one's root vows. When it comes to the act of killing, and indeed any act, 4 factors must be complete: the object, intention, action, and completion of that action. So for instance, the object, if you're intending to kill someone, you have the victim in mind, right? That's the object. And then the intention is the intention to kill. The action is actually engaging in the action of killing them. And the fulfillment is for them to die as a result of you doing what you do. And then if all these 4 factors are complete, then we have a complete karma, complete karmic action. And as I said, the worst killing is to kill a human being. Of course, killing any animal, to take the life of any animal, bird, bee, or what have you, is a serious negative karma. But to kill a human being is just the worst of all. If, for instance, we by mistake we kill an animal, like we kill an insect, we step on an insect when walking unknowingly and end up killing it, that is killing. It is a non-virtue. We have taken the life of a being, but because we didn't have the intention to do it, it's not a full killing karma. What is the karmic result of killing, of taking life? It is rebirth in the hell realms. Another aspect of the karmic consequence of killing is to have a short life, bad health and short life. And also to enjoy killing, to just have this natural, to naturally enjoy killing, taking life. So these are different types of karmic results, so that we can say the fruition in terms of one's rebirth, and then how that karma might ripen as another kind of quality of another rebirth, so short life, and then how it can ripen in terms of action, or like one's predisposition, so having the predisposition to kill. So the karma ripens in all these different ways. Then we have taking what is not given. This involves such acts as stealing someone else's property or depriving them of it without it being given, in either case with a wish to obtain it for oneself. So stealing doesn't mean just literally like taking from someone what they have by force, or by stealth, but also to deceive one, to like deprive someone of what is theirs. If you craftily take sort of the interest or something that is actually owed to someone else without them knowing it, then you're stealing. Sexual misconduct refers to sexual relations. So we have sexual misconduct and celibacy. If one is a monastic, then one has a vow of celibacy. So any sexual activity is a transgression of one's vow. If as a lay person, one doesn't have a vow of celibacy, but one must still observe proper sexual conduct and avoid sexual misconduct. So, sexual misconduct refers to having sexual relations with someone else's partner, someone who's in a relationship with someone else, because that really causes enormous strife, right? It causes conflict, it damages relationships, it breaks up families. It can break up families and cause all of these problems. So, sexual misconduct refers to sexual relationships with an inappropriate partner. So, as we've said, a woman who's committed to someone else, a woman or man committed to someone else, someone related to one by fewer than 7 degrees of consanguinity, a prostitute who's been hired by another person, someone who's the ward of his or her parents, or the state, or of some other guardian, or someone observing a vow of celibacy. So to have sexual relationships with a monk or a nun, someone observing a vow of celibacy, this is one of the worst types of sexual misconduct. To have sexual relationships at an inappropriate time, when the partner is unwell, distressed, pregnant, or menstruating, or underage, and so on. Likewise, in an inappropriate place, in front of a stupa, a temple, a holy site, on top of bricks, broken earthware, or so on a place that hurts one's partner. Or by an inappropriate route, using any passage other than the vagina. Then we have this a quotation from the Treasury of Abhidhamma, which says that taking life is to kill another intentionally and without mistake. Taking what is not given is to appropriate another's property by force or stealth. Sex with improper desires comprises the 4 kinds of sexual misconduct. So if we go back to taking life involves the wish to kill, the act of killing without mistaking the intended victim, not abandoning one's murderous intentions until death ensues. So to engage in killing that person and to not abandon one's intention before they actually draw their last breath, that comprises a full killing karma and completely breaking the root vow, one of the 4 root vows, to not kill. By breaking the vow in this way, then a fully ordained monk, a bhikshu, would completely destroy their monastic vows. And the same goes with these 4 factors, with taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, and so on. So then we have taking what is not given, stealing. But there are many ways to steal. It is also stealing also includes obtaining things in a dishonest way. So she went through many different ways, and giving kind of different anecdotes and to illustrate each. So, for instance, flattering other people, especially if one is a monastic, or, the object of offerings in a dharmic sense. Then, if one flatters one's sponsors, acts in a crafty way to kind of encourage them to give one's offerings, or you might actually give a small present to your sponsor or host, but knowing that that's going to prompt them to give you something much bigger, many more gifts in return. So all of these kinds of actions are part of taking what is not given. So if we look at the life of the omniscient Longchenpa, his life story, you see that no matter, he would accept offerings, whatever offerings were made to him, he would accept them. He would accept them so that the offerer could accumulate merit and purify their obscurations. But he would never say thank you. He would never say you're so kind. He would never try and reciprocate. But he would accept the offering so that they could accumulate merit. He wouldn't engage in this flattery and saying thank you and so on. So this is really how you see this in the life of Longchenpa and other great lamas. So they accept offerings not for their own sake, they're completely free of attachment, but they accept them out of compassion for the giver. But then they remain completely free of all of this kind of flattery and guile and what have you. So we've covered now the three negative actions of the body: taking life, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct. These three are the three negative actions of the body. Then we have the four negative actions of speech: lying, sowing discord, harsh speech, and worthless chatter. When one lies, one deceitfully twists things around and knowingly says something untrue, and the other person understands what one has said. This is not confined to speech. Physical gestures can also be lies. So if you intentionally say something or do something to deceive another, the other person understands what you said and believes it, then you have committed the karma of lying. And if one commits, if one tells what we call a lie about spiritual accomplishment, and someone hears that lie and believes it, then a monastic, a bhikshu, has broken one of their root precepts. All their bhikshu vows are shattered in that moment. So what we mean by a lie about spiritual accomplishment, it means saying something like, you've seen a deity when you haven't, you've attained this level of accomplishment when you haven't. So to make out that you've attained some level of accomplishment when you haven't, and for someone to hear that lie and believe it, then you've committed a lie about spiritual accomplishment, and if you hold the monastic vows are now destroyed. So then we have sowing discord, which is often translated as divisive speech. It means to speak in such a way that you divide two people. You sow discord where there was harmony. You're saying things that trouble the other person, and his or her grasping what one means. So you can do this kind of explicitly or implicitly. You can do it in an obvious way, like actually in front of them. You can, in front of two people who get on well, you can say something like, oh, so he said this about you the other day, and actually kind of cause a fight right there and then. Or you can say something behind one of their backs, or imply something behind one of their backs, to basically make them doubt one another, to ruin their relationship. So this is different if you are actually wishing to help someone and wanting to be honest about something, or to point something out to someone with a good intention. But if you say something with the intention to actually kind of split two people up, to ruin their relationship, for personal aims, personal aims with a negative motivation, then this is sowing discord. Then we have harsh speech, speaking in a harsh, unpleasant way, in a way that disturbs and upsets people. There are many different types of harsh speech, but we won't go through all of these. So we need to I only managed to cover 5 pages yesterday, so I need to make up for that and get through a few more pages today. So worthless chatter. Worthless chatter comprises negative speech other than the first 3 kinds. So just lots of nonsense talk. Chatter, gossip. Just talking for no reason. So like a lot of you, especially during a Dharma teaching or during a puja or Vajraguru accumulation, to chatter away during the puja, during the teaching, that is such negative karma. You're disturbing other people. You're disturbing the practice, the accumulation of merit, by distracting others and obstructing others' practice. This is a terrible type of chatter, of gossip. It includes flattery, singing and acting. So singing and acting, singing is listed here, but say up in Humla we have some very some traditional songs about that praise one's parents and different kind of wonderful qualities. So some would say such songs are actually really excellent things, but singing can also be a kind of chatter or gossip, meaningless talk, conversation about war, business, love, and so forth. And most of the talk we engage in is just talk motivated by attachment and aggression, right? So it is by nature negative. Kimba Dasa Rinpoche once said to me, you talk way too much. You talk way too much. And I said, but Kimba Rinpoche, I don't lie. I don't say anything dishonest, even though I do talk a lot. And Kimba Rinpoche said, think about it. Almost everything we say is motivated by aggression or attachment. It's all tied up with aggression and attachment. So by nature, it's non-virtuous. So for instance, this attachment and aversion just pervades our conversation. Like if you think about a place, so you think, what's the best place in the world? Well, the best country in the world is Nepal. The best state there is Karnali. The best place there is Humla. The best district there is, my district. The best residence there is this monastery. Why? Because it's mine. Because it's associated with me, right? Likewise with people. Likewise with place. Likewise with things. Whatever it is. Everything that associated with us we think is the best. Everything that's different we think is worse or lesser. So there's this just attachment and aversion just pervades all of our talk, right? So therefore it's non-virtuous. So Kinran pointed this out to me and said, you really talk way too much and that's not a good thing. So then I took this to heart. I thought this is really true. So I then took a vow of silence for a period of time. This is when I was still with Kimbo Daza Rinpoche, and I think Rinpoche says this is when I was still in Kham with Kimbo Daza Rinpoche, and the monks helping me, attending me. The day or two after I started my vow of silence, one of them fell sick. I had a fever and chills and was shaking and sweating. And the other young monk, the other monk helping, didn't really know how to help look after him. So I had this vow of silence. So I had to keep it. So I had to write all these notes. Please give him some soup, give him some hot tea, give him this and that. Help him with this. So to make sure that this monk was looked after properly. And after the month of the vow of silence, even though the only thing I'd been communicating was instructions about how to look after this poorly monk, there was a huge pile of notes that I'd written, So if we wrote down everything we usually spoke of, think of what that would come to. All of our talk about politics and this and that, all of this nonsense talk. So most of our talk is just worthless chatter. It's just meaningless talk. Almost all our talk is just meaningless talk. About these, the treasurer of Abhidhamma has this to say: lies are words that pervert the truth and whose meaning is actually understood. Divisive speech is that spoken with a poisoned mind, intent on splitting other people. Harsh words are those one does not like to hear. All speech influenced by afflictive emotions is worthless chatter. Now we come to the three negative actions of mind: covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong views. Covetousness, so longing for that which others have. So if you see someone wearing beautiful clothes or wearing nice jewelry or what have you, you're filled with covetousness. You think, oh, if only I could have that myself. And then harmful intent, the wish to hurt or get back, hurt others. Wrong views. Wrong views involving the firm belief that there's no truth in karmic cause and effect, and the three jewels, past and future lives, and so on. So, covetousness is longing for what others have. Harmful intent, these flashes of anger you might have, like, oh, I'll show him, I'll get him, and so on. You curse someone, or you just have this flash of anger or rage at them. That's harmful intent, the deep-rooted wish to harm another person and cause them pain. And then wrong views. About this, the treasury of Abhidhamma says, covetousness is perverse attachment to others' property, malice is hatred of sentient beings, the view that there is no virtue and no evil is wrong view. These 10 have been described here in terms of the complete course of the action, but you should also definitely avoid any acts similar to the 10 negative actions, for example, killing unintentionally by mistake. For instance, so to accumulate any one of these karmas fully, as I explained, you need 4 actions need to be complete. The basis, the intention, the action, and the completion of the action. If all 4 factors are not complete, then you haven't completed that karma, accumulated that karma in full. But that's not to say you might aim to kill a certain person, and you set out to kill them, but you end up killing someone else. Well, you haven't completed that full karma because your intention was not fulfilled, right? You ended up killing someone else. But that's not to say you didn't accumulate any karma. You still accumulated grave karma. So in this way, you should definitely also avoid any acts similar to the 10 negative actions, like killing unintentionally. In particular, criticism of anything connected with the Dharma, the sublime doctrine, the spiritual friend who teaches it, and so forth, criticizing teachers, criticizing the teachings, these are serious negative karmas. They are related to wrong view, and they have immeasurably negative consequences. For many, many kalpas too, one's body 500 leagues in size, and on that body 500 heads, and in those heads in every one no fewer than 500 tongues, and on each tongue a giant plough with full 500 shares, no less, burning their blazing furrows there. All this because of evil deeds of being critical. Then there are the 5 crimes with immediate retribution and the 5 crimes that are almost as grave. These are determined by the objects on which they are perpetuated. The 5 crimes with immediate retribution: to kill one's father, to kill one's mother, and so on. So these, and as well as the above 10 virtues, and so on, are all explained in great detail, very precisely, in the Abhidharma and other scriptures. So exactly how these various non-virtues are defined, how they're completed, what factors are involved, and so on. So we have the 5 crimes with immediate retribution. Just to run through them, they are to kill one's father, one's mother, an arhat to create a split in the sangha, and with evil intention to cause a tathagata to bleed. Then we have the 5 crimes that are almost as grave. So, the 5 crimes that are almost as grave: to destroy a stupa and so on, now on page 124. After that, there are 24 serious faults and perverse acts that include shameful deeds in violation of edicts. These are determined by both the objects and the acts themselves. Now, the 16 serious faults: to take the head of the row of scholars, so to assume a rank higher than one has, to accept the homage of fully ordained monk, to eat the food of someone doing intensive practice, to appropriate a mantra practitioner's ritual materials. So these are all serious faults. To take the head of the row of scholars, so to seat in an assembly, to sit higher, in a position higher than one qualifies for, to accept the homage of a fully ordained monk, to eat the practice. So, for instance, if one is a lay person, to accept the homage the homage of a bhikshu, to take the food of someone doing intensive practice, like a 3-year retreatant, and so on. And then we have the 4 serious faults entailing impairment, the 4 serious faults entailing contempt, the 4 serious faults entailing scorn, the 8 perverse acts, maligning the good, and so on. These are said to be the 8 perverse acts. So we'll dedicate the merit now and stop here for today.